Jasmine Holmes, owner of 910 West, a digital marketing and consulting agency located in Gilbert, Arizona. Today I'm going to talk about one of the most important parts of a successful marketing and the key to a true marketing strategy. One of the things that we do all the time with our clients, a really important piece, and something I've been talking about, people who know me have heard me talk about a million times, because it is that important, and that is ideal client. And specifically, how to identify, how to find your ideal client. Now, if you want to know a little bit more about why this is so important and how it can make a big difference in your business, check out the article link I've got below. I talk about that there. What I'm going to talk about today is how to find them. And when I first started thinking about the answer to this question, I thought about it probably from the marketer's perspective, not the business owner's perspective, which is, how do you describe them? What does that look like? So really it is, who is your ideal client? But as I was thinking about it, working on the content for this video, I realized that question really may be more about how do you physically, so not the concept of ideal client of who they are, but how do you physically get in the same room as your ideal client? Well, the good news is I'm going to answer both those questions today, and it's because they're interrelated. The one really feeds into the other. So you can't answer the second part of that question, which is how do I physically get in the room with an ideal client, without first understanding who that is. You have to know who you're looking to connect with before you can actually go out and find them. Imagine that. So start by identifying your ideal client, number one here in our steps. And when you're identifying them, what you want to think about is, who is that perfect customer for your business? And there's a couple different ways you can answer that question. I like to start by asking myself, who's my absolute favorite? And so looking at your existing contacts, your existing customer list is a great place to start looking for some ideal clients you already have, because you may already have them in there. So who are those suspects that you have? And then how do you describe and clone to find more of them? So ask yourself. And how I define who is my favorite is, who is that client that every time I see their name on my caller ID, my phone rings, I pick up and talk to them. I grab their call right away, I answer it right away. And not because I know that I have to answer their call to deliver on this service to keep them paying my bill every month, but because I genuinely want to talk to them. I generally like working with them. That's really important. Work, particularly if you are self-employed or you own your own business, is way too hard to work with people we don't like. So as much as possible, we want to attract the kind of clients and customers into our business that really just we click with, we get. And so that is where that favorite comes into. Make a list of those people that you pick up their phone call every time. Put them down, because those are likely, in some way, shape, or form, something about them makes them part of your ideal client. The other question you want to ask yourself is, who is the most profitable current client or customer I have? And so profitable doesn't mean necessarily who pays you the most, because sometimes those clients that are the highest end clients that are paying the most, they're also the most challenging, or they want the most from us. So sometimes they actually end up being less profitable, even though we're dollars more the actual profit, what we take away at the end of the day, because we're having to spend more time to service those customers. And so what you're really looking for is the intersection between those people that pay pretty well and also those people who you really like working with, that it just clicks, and so that's where your favorites also come into play, because those are going to be the ones that are going to be the most profitable for your business. And so if you can multiply and have 10 or 20 of those, just imagine how much more profitable you can be. So that's what you want to look at when we say most profitable, not the total dollar spent, but really the ones that at the end of it, after you've delivered your product or service to them, who's the one that has biggest on the bottom line. And that's generally because you guys just really click. And one of the reasons you click is probably because you really like each other, you have similar personalities, and that's also why you're favorite. But it may also be because they are just the right customer for the problem that you solve. So if you don't have a lot of existing clients or customers, or when you make these two lists and you look at them, you're not seeing anybody on them that really you would want to work with 10 more of those, you want to look at the benefits and the solutions of your product. And so what I mean by that, and when I say benefits and what problem do you solve, I almost always get the answer that is in fact a feature, because that's what we're really comfortable talking about, is what our product does. My product or service does X. The reality is any customer, not just your ideal customer, does not give a rip that it does X. What they want to know is, why is that important to them? How is that going to benefit me? And so that's where you really want to flip that question on its head and look at it and say, okay, well, if it does X, what is the end result of X? Because that's going to lead you to the answer of really what problem that's solving. What does X really mean? And that's going to be your problem Y. And so that's what you want to lead with in your marketing message, is we solve problem Y using our product or service that does X. And so that can also help you, though, understand your ideal client, because if you understand what that problem is you're solving, you then want to think about who are the people that that problem is on the tip top of their list, because that's going to be your ideal client. If that's their number one problem and you've got a great solution for it, they're going to be a perfect fit for your business, and they're likely going to fit into this category of being favorite, because they're going to get what you do. They're not going to really kind of break you down on you having to sell them really hard, and they're going to be profitable because they're going to be really appreciative and they're going to really need this solution. And so those three things you all want to put together. And when you're particularly looking into the lists of the two people of your favorites and who's the most profitable, what you want to look at there is, where is that intersection? What name shows up in both those lists? And then think about, and that can help you answer that problem question as well, as if you've got somebody, a client who is already on both those lists, they are your favorite, they are very profitable, and you can ask yourself, what problem am I solving for them? Or better yet, ask them. And that can help you get to the answer to that problem question to better identify more ideal clients. So once you've got some idea, once you've got some brainstorm of what that looks like, you want to go in and describe that in detail, because now what we want to be able to do is take that one person and replicate it and find 10, 20 more of those people to keep growing our business. And so generally in the marketing world, you hear us talk about ideal client profiles, and that's what we're talking about. It's just really detailed descriptions of who these people are. And so that can be a little bit of an intense process to go through. It's one of the things that I do recommend working with an agency if it's in your budget and it's available to you, because that's something they can do really well for you. It's something we do all the time. But HubSpot also has an awesome tool that will walk you through that process, and it'll do it for you, and it's completely free. I've got a link below. So just click on that link and walk through and answer those questions, and they'll spit out for you what that ideal client profile looks like. And then that's the answer to that question of how can you find more of those. And why that's really important to have a really detailed description of what an ideal client is so you can find more of those people, but it also helps in your real world networking, because you can tell people who you're looking to meet, and then if they know them, they can give them to you. And we've all been in that position where we've gotten referrals that were maybe not quite the right fit, or wildly not the right fit. It's generally because it was our own fault for not giving people enough specific direction about who was the right fit. And it's probably because if you haven't done this work on ideal client, you didn't know who they were, so you didn't know how to answer that, how to tell them who you wanted to meet. So when you have that, it'll actually lead to more referrals, but you can also use it for active marketing on your own part, which gets to the second part of this question, which is, how do I find my ideal client physically? How do I get in the same room with them? And you want to meet with them on their home turf. You want to be where they are. Okay, sounds really simple, right? Okay, duh. Well, how do I do that? Well, that's where that ideal client profile process, like the one HubSpot works you through, is awesome, because they've actually already given you the answer to that question. You'll notice as you work your way through that tool, they ask you some questions like, what sort of groups or organizations does your ideal client join? What sort of magazines do they read? What websites do they visit? What podcasts do they listen to? And it may seem kind of like, why are they asking me these questions? Why does this matter? Because it answers the how to find them, because those are the places they hang out. And that's what you want to get to with your ideal client, is not just a really clear picture of who they are as a person, so you can almost visualize them standing next to you, but where do they go? Where are they at? So I can find not just one of them, but I can find 10 of them in a room together. So for instance, if architects are your ideal client, what you want to ask yourself is, what professional organizations, maybe it's a professional architecture association that you can join, and then you're walking into a room of not just one architect, but hundreds of architects that you can talk to. If you want to target a local, people in your local business, ask yourself where your local architects may hang out. And that's where a chamber of commerce is a great tool if architects are your target market, because a lot of times they're involved with the public policy committee at your local chamber, because that's where they discuss issues related to building and the projects that these architects want to work on. So if that's your ideal client, you might go to your local chamber and get involved with that public policy committee, so you can be sitting side by side with those architects in your community and better understanding their needs and getting to know them. So that's how you can physically find them in the real world, by looking at the organizations that they're a part of. But you can also use that to find them digitally, to find them online. So ask yourself, what sorts of websites do they visit? What podcasts do they listen to? What magazines or blogs do they read? And so you can get on there as a guest author or contributor. You can advertise on there. And so the goal here is, what you really want to have happen is have you be positioned as being everywhere they're at. Everywhere they look, they're seeing you. And you're talking about, we're going to go back to this whole problem solving thing. You're leading off with how you solve their number one problem. And now all of a sudden you're not selling to anybody. They're coming to you, begging you to help them solve their problem. And so the first step in that process is identifying your ideal clients. So figuring out who you may already know, getting really detailed in describing them. And then from there, you're going to figure out what their home turf, where they're hanging out, and you're going to go hang out there with them. And that's how you find your ideal client.